You are watching Vault Business Podcast. Today, I have a wonderful friend of mine. I've known him for many years. I have Emlen Miles-Mattingly come on the show. Emlen is a financial advisor and owns his own business. Emlen, tell us a little bit about you. Tell us a little bit about your business and what you have going right now.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thanks for having me on, Jose. As you said, we are friends, and we've been we're at a familiar place recording a podcast together. So I'm glad to be here. But so tell you a little bit about myself. Born and raised here in Madera. Been here my most of my life. Went away for college a little bit. But when it came to starting my business, I worked in finance. That's the only thing that I've ever done. So I started in banking. From banking, it kind of evolved into finance, a little bit of insurance work, and then I started my financial planning firm about 7 years ago. With that financial planning firm, we focused on minority families that were making six-figure income. That was our sweet spot, and we did that for years. We had a podcast around it, the Minority Money Podcast. So that's kind of how we started, and we'll talk a little bit more about where it's going. But yeah, that's how we started as a financial planning firm.
Gotcha. So I do want to let the viewing audience here know a little bit about how we met and how we started working together. The first time that I ever heard of you, Emlen, is I heard of you from a couple of cousins of yours. I grew up in Fairmead. Mm-hmm. I grew up in Chowchilla. You're from Madera. Who are your cousins, and how did we all kind of come together?
I think it's the gang. Jamil. Jamil is one of my cousins. Jamil gang. Shout out to Tickets in case he's watching. And so from there, I think what happened was I remember exactly where we met. It was out on Avenue 17. It was at the hotel out there. They were having an event out there. And so you were there already, and then I came into the room, and you were like, you had already heard my name before. Yes. And you were like, hey, you're Emlen. I've been hearing about you. We need to meet. And I said, hey, my name, and so we started talking. And immediately after that, I think it wasn't long before we started shooting videos together.
Yeah. So this was like in its infancy, like, not a lot of people were shooting videos. I think we're a little ahead of our time.
Oh yeah, absolutely. This is like 2018, This is before I even had my podcast. So I started my podcast in 2019. So this had to be like 2018, 2017, like right after I started my firm.
And we were going around town shooting in different locations, right? But I think we did our first like actual podcast in your office.
Yep.
Remember that?
Yep.
It was super crazy, man. I remember we're shooting this podcast. I come in all suited and booted, man. I had a white shirt with my suit on. And like, I was just so uptight. Like I was just kind of scared about the whole thing, but you were cool about it. And we like, you were like made for this, man.
I was nervous. Don't get it wrong. I was nervous. I didn't know what was going to come of the video. And it was like one of the first times that I had been on video. But we're both wearing suits. Matter of fact, Matt was wearing a suit. I don't know how long since then, but it was more so about just entrepreneurs working together to put a message out. And I think that's what it really comes down to, right? We didn't know exactly what we're doing. We didn't have all the right answers at the time, but I think we were out there trying to help people, put content out to give people the advice they need.
I remember, dude, our lighting was terrible. Mm-hmm. Like we had terrible lighting. The whole video, I don't even remember if we put it out. That was that bad, man.
We put it out. I remember people, because I remember it because remember we were in that little hallway in my office, right outside of my office, in the common area, and I remember we put it out to some people were seeing it. Other mortgage, other people in the mortgage business were seeing it. I know that for a fact because they were saying stuff to me about it. So we put it out. I think we just put it on Facebook.
It was cringy for me, man. It was cringy for me. But you get better as you go. Like we always talked about it, and we said it during that time. Like, hey, we're gonna do this. We're gonna learn, and we're just gonna put content out and figure out where it goes. Now, we did stop a little bit in between all of that, but I look at you now in your podcast. Man, dude, this is awesome. How many podcasts do you have running now?
Funny, I have 3 podcasts. I forgot about that. Okay. So we have my Minority Money, right? Then we have the Diversity in Action podcast. It's about an internship that we started. I didn't even tell you about that. Yeah, so we started a national internship called BLX. It's the Latinx internship. So it's for Black and Latinx aspiring financial advisors, a nationwide program.
Wow.
So we have a podcast for that, Diversity in Action. Then I have another podcast called The Allies of the Industry. with me and my co-founder for the Onyx Advisor Network that we started. I haven't told you about any of this. So we have that podcast too. So there's 3 that I have now, but we are going to discontinue the Minority Money podcast and start a new one. So we'll talk a little bit about that right there.
Now you told me, I think you have how many episodes?
On Minority Money, we have 185.
Wow, that is amazing. That's amazing. And the structure that you put around it, I mean, you have people from all around the country like coming on your podcast, right?
Around the world.
Around the world.
Yeah.
That is awesome. That is awesome. So I did have the pleasure, I don't remember what year it was, but I was on your podcast. Great experience. We talked a little bit about mortgage. We talked about helping people. But primarily, everything we do, Emlen, would you agree that it is giving information to help people?
Absolutely. No doubt about it.
So that information that we're providing for somebody, look, we're not trying to be gatekeepers, like we're trying to give great information out to people so they can make educated decisions on what they're, where they're going with their life. Now, you did mention to me, Emlen, that you got something a little different going right now. What are you doing right now with your business?
Yeah, so we're doing a little pivot. So like you heard me say in the beginning, you heard me say that we were doing financial planning. We do financial planning. But what I've found over the last 3 years is that the real place where I think that we can make the biggest impact is for our retirees. And so what we're doing is we're transitioning from working with younger clients to a little bit older client, helping them focus, prepare, and enjoy their retirements. And so with that, the transition is also going to transition the podcast. So we're gonna discontinue the Minority Money podcast. We will leave everything there so people can still find it. It'll be there for a few years so people can still go and listen to the older content. But we're going to start the Hello Retirement podcast to talk to those clients that we're trying to help now.
That's awesome. And you mentioned this to me, and my dad just retired August of last year. To be honest with you, this is something that would have been good for him. Like he needed help, and he's asking me, hey, what should I do with my retirement? How do I go about this? And so now you have something for somebody that's retiring, that baby boomer, to get some content in that. And I asked you the question, Emlen, like, do you feel that, the older community is going to be able to pick up on the podcast and everything? What'd you tell me, man?
I said just last week, I met with a 72-year-old client, and we had to exchange some information. He was able to airdrop me his statements, but we didn't print anything out. Everything was done completely electronically, and he was 72. So if he can figure that out and he knows how to do that, he came in with his iPad to the meeting. First of all, let's talk about, you know what I mean? So I think that we put people in these boxes, but if anything has happened, the silver lining, one of them in 2020, was that people had to use technology. It was the only way that you could communicate with the people that you wanted to talk to. And so the reason why he said he was able to do all of this stuff on the phone, because I asked him, I was like, whoa, he's like, well, I want to talk to my grandkids, so I got to learn how to use this technology to talk to them. So I think that, that gave me a lot of insight into what I was doing. And it was a confirmation, like, this is going to work, because people aren't as, they are tech savvy enough to at least listen to a radio show.
So people are adapting. They're adapting to what happened in 2020. They're adapting to the fact that, hey, you know what? I need to make sure that I know how to get documents over to a financial advisor, or making sure that they're working with Social Security correctly. Now, would you attribute this to the world changing, or is it, hey, you know what? We need to make sure that we stay up on current events? Like, are people changing the way they're consuming content right now?
I would say that the way that people consume content has evolved, right? I mean, there's a long time ago where magazines were a thing, right? Where paper copy was a thing. But now we have so many things that come to us on our phone. Like, if we're on social media, we're going to get a lot of content just scrolling through our feed, whatever social media that you're on. So I think that if I had to say one thing, or one big thing, it'd have to be social media. And the reason why I'd say that is because it gets you used to the electronic information. And once you're okay with receiving electronic information, it allows you to take other avenues and use that for other things. And so that's what I think. That's what I'm seeing, at least. So that's what I would attribute it to.
Now, tell us a little bit about your pivot. I know that you talked about that you're pivoting your business. What was that about? I know that you've gone more internet based, but you're still local. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so in 2020, when we started the firm here in 2017, I wanted to be virtual. Like, my whole idea was to be virtual, okay? And so when I started, one of my clients was like, I'd prefer if you had an office. And I said, okay, well, you know what? let's do it, because I don't know if everybody's ready for that. So we started there, but I had all the capabilities of being completely virtual. So I had all my clients didn't live in Madera at that time. I had a lot of clients in Fresno, and I had a lot of people that were in other towns that I was working with, family members that were out of town. So I was already capable of doing that. Well, 2020 happens, right? Everything gets shut down. Now people aren't coming out as much. So now it was like the perfect storm for me. By that time, I already had well over 140 episodes, right? You know what I mean? I had like I had about 120 episodes of content that I had already sitting there. So now people are, they're sitting at home trying to figure out their finances, have extra money because they're not being able to go out. And this is the time when we doubled revenue. We doubled the first year, tripled the next year. So things were starting to flow a lot. Now, as things got closer to 2022, and things started to slow down a little bit. And this is when the pivot came in. And the reason why I wanted to pivot is because I told people, I always said financial planning, right? This is what I do. Well, what is that? What is financial planning anyways? So I spend a lot of time trying to explain to people, and you'll see on my show, there's a lot of episodes where I'm explaining what financial planning is, how it helps people, and why they need it. And so when I got to this place, I was like, you know what? I think it's time for us to pivot, because we have some retiree clients that I'm already working with. I have some younger clients that I'm working with, helping them with financial planning, but I'm not very referable because people don't know what to tell them when they're going to come see me. They just say, go see Emlen. He knows what to do with the money. And they're like, well, what do you do? Do you do investments? Do you do insurance? Do you do annuities? What do you do? I don't know what you do. And so the pivot to retirement planning made it very, very easy, or made me more referable in my mind, because now people can say, just like you brought up your father, he's retired, he should see you. And that's what I wanted. So I wanted that ease of like people understanding how I could help them, right? And so we made the pivot, and it's been so far so good. I think the podcast coming out is going to help further get that information out. But yeah, that was the real pivot. I think you can't be scared to have a niche.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, you told us about another niche too, off air. You are actually helping with will and trust as well, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. So we do trust, estate planning. Estate planning. So you can do, estate planning, so when people say trust, I hear estate plan, and this is the reason why. Trust is a document in the estate plan. Right. So you're going to have your trust, you're going to have your will, you're going to have your advanced healthcare directive. You got a whole bunch of different things that we do. And what we're finding out is a lot of our clients were needing those things. We're referring them out to attorneys, which, we all love attorneys. However, there was too much lead time in between when the client was actually getting these things done. I've been working with this. I was on the Fresno Estate Planning Council for years when I worked out of Fresno. So I'm very familiar with the whole estate planning process and knew how important it was. What was happening is these attorneys were a little too busy, weren't getting to my clients, and they weren't getting these needs met. So I partnered with a company out of Sacramento to take care of the estate planning needs. They have estate planning attorneys there. They deal everything, and we can get an estate plan done in a week. It's great.
That's awesome. That is great. That is something that I'm 100% a believer in. You have to have your estate plan already set up. Now, Emlen, I know that you being a financial advisor, this information that we're giving out is for entertainment purposes. Nothing that we're giving out right now is take it as financial information. But what do you attribute why more people don't invest for their future? What is it not knowing, or why do you feel that?
I think it's a few things. One of the things is not knowing. You don't know what you don't know, right? And so people typically do stuff that they're familiar with, even if they don't know, right? This stuff that you're familiar with. And I think the biggest thing is this, in my opinion, because it doesn't matter if you invest the money or not. This is why. Because if you don't have a habit of saving, you're not going to do it no matter what. It doesn't matter if you do, you know what I mean? So I've noticed this over the years, 22 years doing finance. The people that save money are better off than the people that don't. True. Point blank period. You know what I mean? And so now when you're getting to the place where you want to build wealth, I think that being able to find someone that you can trust is hard.
Yeah. So I think that's the first step, right? Is finding that person that you trust, to have them look over your finances, to make sure that you're moving your money in the right direction. Now, even though it feels like we're headed into a recession, and of course we're not going to call it, we're going to let the people that call it. Do you feel that it is still right to invest through recession or through a down market? Is it a good time to invest?
Absolutely. I think it is. Absolutely, yes. Yeah, resounding yes. And the reason why is because when is it a good time to save money, right? It's always a good time to save money. And the reason why I say that is because 10 years from now, you're going to have a decision that you made, right? And you'll be able to look back and say, 10 years ago, I decided to start saving. Or 10 years ago, I had a lot of questions and didn't start saving. And 10 years is going to pass no matter what you do. So how you live those 10 years or what you get at the end of those 10 years is all based on the decisions that you make. And I think the biggest thing that when it comes to investing is the behavior. It's not what you invest in. People spend too much time thinking about what you should invest in instead of just investing. Because even if you just go and do an index fund, whether you meet with an advisor or not, right? The habits, the behavior is what's going to make you wealthy.
Right. Well, we talk about it all the time in mortgage. Like, I had somebody comment the other day, and they were basically saying, hey, when do you feel that it's not the right time to purchase a home? In my opinion, I believe in home ownership. I believe in investing in your future. And every single time that I've invested into a house, Emlen, it is paid for me. It has made my life better. Why? Because I know that is a future investment. I'm putting my money into a home, and in the future, it's going to appreciate over time. So even right now, we have naysayers in the market who are saying, hey, you know what? It's not the right time to purchase a home. If this is not the right time, then when is? When is the right time?
Exactly.
Like, it's only going to get more expensive as you move forward in your life. And I see investing the same way. It's like if you could get into investing right now, just like you're saying, into an index fund, it's a long-term play. It's never a short-term play, would you say?
Absolutely. It's a long-term play.
Long-term play. And you're looking at this in the aspect of, what can I do for the older me? I always think of it like this, okay? Like I'm 41 right now. How are my finances going to look at 61? Or how are my finances or my living standards going to be when I'm 65? And this is what you're doing for people that are retiring, right?
What you're bringing up is a great point. It's called framing, right? And what framing is when you take your situation and you look at it and say, okay, what's going to happen if? So I'm framing the situation of what's going to happen if, when, because you're going to, if and when you turn 61, what is going to look like? What is life going to look like? Am I going to be able to stop working? So it goes back to a lot of different things, but one of the things that I think about is that you've heard that whole thing with the cookies, right? They put the kids in the room and they put the marshmallows actually, and they say, okay, who can delay this gratification of getting this marshmallow? If you wait, you're gonna get 3 marshmallows, but if you eat it now, you're only gonna get 1. But we got a lot of people out here eating the first marshmallow, right? And so what I would say is like that delayed gratification and framing about what I'm going to look like in the future, because a lot of us get so buried in the now that we never look to the later. Right. And so what we're trying to do is say, look, we can help you be good now and later, but it's going to take some sacrifices now and later. And a lot of people don't want to do that.
Well, that's what I see right now, Emlen. Like, I see a lot of people that do not know how to delay gratification. And that's something that I think I learned as being a kid. We didn't grow up with a lot of money, and we had a lot of delayed gratification as we got older. But it made me have that frame of mind that, hey, you know what? I need to take care of the older Jose, not the young Jose. Right now, we're still willing and able and to work. We have a lot of life in us. And I wake up every single morning with me looking at the cup, half full, and making sure that I'm doing the right moves for the older me. I want to sit in my rocking chair and think to myself, I did everything that I possibly could to put myself in a good situation. And I see that in you too. You do the same thing. Mm-hmm. How many kids do you have?
4.
You got 4 kids.
Well, 4 kids. You gotta
leave them something. Would you agree to leave your kids something?
Absolutely. I even have something to say about that. I think I actually went back and listened to my first podcast. Because I needed to get I just wanted to listen to it. And one of the things I said on the first podcast is I used to ask people, do you know your great grandparents? And most people say no. And I say, why don't you? And they say, I don't know. I said, because they didn't leave you nothing. Let that hit you for a little while. Reason why you don't know who they are, because they didn't leave you nothing.
All right. So they're going to know Emlen.
I'm hoping.
I'm hoping.
We're putting it together. So
you know what? That's a great statement, man. I want my, my heirs of whatever I do to remember me, man. Because at the end of the day, honestly, I was just talking to my wife about this the other day. we don't like to talk about death, man, but it's going to happen to all of us. And I want to make sure that people that knew me when I was alive said, hey, you know what? He was a great man. He helped people. You know, he did the right things in his life, and you know, they come to my funeral, and hey, this is a day of celebration for me. You know, so that is a great statement that you're putting out there, and that's dropping bars right there.
It's one of those things, and it hits me every time. Like, I heard it, and like, so this is the thing. Like, when you were talking about those old videos, sometimes there's gems in those old videos. Like, that was the first one that I ever recorded, and I said that, and I was like, wow, I haven't said that since then, and that was, you know, years ago. And so when I thought about it, and I had got it from a book, it wasn't my original thought. I got it from a book, and in the book, they were talking about the Rockefeller family. And so when they're talking about the Rockefeller family, he's talking about, you know, great, you know, J.D. Rockefeller, and like how every year his grandchildren get a check from him. And I was thinking about that, and I was thinking, you know, there's some prominent names now in America. Like, when you think about the Rockefellers, when you think about the Vanderbilts, when you think about the Carnegies, when you think about these names, they've all been, you know, they've done something, and they sacrificed something. The leader sacrificed something for his family. And so it's like, what sacrifices are you willing to make for your family to perpetuate the name and the generations of greatness that you can put?
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be at their level.
No, absolutely.
To be at their level.
Absolutely.
It could be something at a smaller level where you can still leave something for your family. Because I know in the Mexican culture, you know, families, you know, the dad always wants to leave something for the child. It doesn't have to be in the Rockefellers level, but just looking at them, these were the people that built America, man. And they left something for their kids, and we still talk about them to this day, you know? So absolutely, that is a profound statement right there, you know?
It's one of those things that you can learn from that. And when you put the scale and the scale of it, right? Like, not everybody's gonna have Rockefeller money, but I don't care. Like, if you left the kids a house, if you left them, because we know, like, this is something that you probably hadn't heard me say, but real estate is one of the best ways to build generational wealth. You're hearing it from the financial advisor that talks about investments. Real estate is one of the biggest ways for families to get ahead. You look at home ownership for someone, right? And when you own a home, I look where I grew up at, and I look at the apartment complexes that were next to where I grew up. And you look at the stability from the kids that are able to come from a house that their parents owned. It makes a difference. It makes a difference in the school you go to. It makes a difference in the friends that you have. It makes a difference in the education that you, like, everything is impacted by home ownership in where you live. And people they underestimate that. So when we're talking about leaving a legacy, right now there's one house in our family that's been in our family forever, and that's my grandmother's house. And it's still there now. And we can talk about a lot of things, but I promise you, when you know that you have a roof over your head and you're going to get food on the table, and you're going to those things that Maslow's hierarchy talks about, right? When you have those things and it starts with a home, it can be so powerful what happens after that. The home is a transforming thing, especially when you think about how much the people have done to keep people of color out of homes.
Wow, that's profound. Because you always had a place. It's grandma's house, right? Always had grandma's house. That is so awesome. Well, you know what? You know who I am, Emlen. You know that I preach home ownership. No matter what market we're in, no matter where we're at, home ownership to me is the most important thing in a child's life. So what you're saying is absolutely correct. What I would tell you, Emlen, is that, you know, having this podcast and getting this message out is what I'm doing, man. Like, I don't care about, you know, how it's seen. I mean, we talked about the videos that we shot before. Like, we're getting better as we go, and we're getting out this information. So I do want to drop your new podcast out and the existing ones you have, so people can listen to those, because these things are gems, man. I was coming down from the mountain of Oakers, I was telling you, and I was listening to your podcast, man. And number one, I'm proud, right? I'm proud as a friend. Like, dude, this guy is doing it right here, you know? But you are dropping great information, and people have to listen to this stuff, man. So we're going to go ahead and put links in the bio in regards to your podcast. Emlen, it's been such a pleasure to have you. I think that every single time that we get around each other, man, I just love being around you, man. It's just, it's a great feeling. Coming from where we came to where we're at, if we can do it, man, anybody can do it. I so appreciate it, man, for coming on the show. Thank you, Emlen.
Thanks for having me, bro. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.